with your host, Paul Solomon. LUHU Advisors is your one-stop call to help quarterback and organize all your needs for senior planning, from finances, insurance, long-term care, and estate planning documents. At LUHU Advisors, let us help you with planning for the future. Now enjoy the show.
Hi everybody, and welcome again to my second version of LUHU Advisors. I am your host and owner of LUHU Advisors, Paul Solomon. Tonight we're going to go over my background, and maybe some of you can relate. I'm going to tell a story about my family. I'm going to start with where I started with all of this, and being a licensed real estate broker, agent and broker for the last 36 years, being a licensed insurance agent in life, long-term care, and fixed annuities, being a licensed assisted living administrator, and also a certified senior advisor. All of that has come together in the last couple of years so I can help families understand where this tsunami is headed, where it's coming, where it's going. The baby boomers are not ready for it to help support their parents. My story is hopefully can enlighten you on what's coming if it's not already here. But I hear it every day. The phone rings every day with another story from another family that's been just dealing with the matters of whether it's the financial matters, the health matters, the real estate matters, long distance, that they're either up north, out west, and their loved ones down here, and they're having health issues. And my story started 2009, 2010. I got a phone call. My parents live about a half hour away from me, and my mom said that my dad was giving up the ability to look at the financial papers to deal with their finances. And it probably came out of the blue, but my mom said, "You got to help me because I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what to do." So I drove up to Lake Worth, and we sat, and I thought maybe for an hour or two. I ended up being there all day, and we went through everything. And I have to say my mom kept the best records of anybody I've ever seen, canceled checks, bank statements, I mean from years, 20 years ago. It was really amazing. The only problem was she had no idea what she was looking at. She really had no idea. She kept records, but she really had no idea what was kind of in the bank. My dad was really in control of that, in control with the financial advisor, and I think he was just overwhelmed. The financial markets crashed. He saw a lot of negative marks on his statements every month and figured that he didn't know what else to do. They did have a stockbroker back in the day. He really wasn't a financial advisor, but he was a stockbroker, and he was just churning their account, unfortunately. He was doing things that I really wasn't familiar with puts, calls, options, and they were 79, 80 years old, and he was just churning their account. And unfortunately, when the market kept, in their downturns back in 2001 and then 2008, 2009, there was no way for them to catch up. And that was the day where I had to put my foot down. I said, okay, we have to make some decisions here, and we have to figure out how we're going to take care of this going forward. My dad started showing signs of mild cognitive impairment. My mom was in denial. And I hear that from a lot of families that I work with every week, that the spouse is trying to hide from the adult children, from their friends, really what's going on at home. And unfortunately, help is needed, but people just don't know where to turn. They're embarrassed, and they don't really want their adult children to even know, because they don't want to be, turned back into children of their adult children. So I went up there, I did my thing that day, and I said, okay, we have to figure out, now that Dad's showing signs of dementia, we have to figure out how we're going to pay for this going forward. My dad was unhealthy for most of his life, heart attack at 38, triple or quadruple bypass at 55, had prostate cancer, had a blood disorder, and the list goes on. But he kept beating it, and he kept moving on. But unfortunately, when it came to buying insurance, it was always either not cost effective, or he just couldn't qualify. So my dad didn't have long-term care insurance. He had some life insurance. My mom, unbeknownst to anybody, had long-term care. Somebody talked her into it. She had it. She was making the payments every month. And when I got there, she had no idea what she was paying. She knew that it was just some payment that she was going to make, and she was even thinking of stopping to make that payment. And I said, no, every month before you even pay the HOA, you pay your electric, you make sure you make that insurance payment, because that's going to help us going forward. So that was the day I decided to start looking and start speaking to people. And everybody I turned to, whether talking about government benefits, whether it was VA benefits, my dad was a Korean War veteran, talking about Medicaid benefits, no one really had the answers. If I went to 10 different people, I would get 10 different answers. No one really would be able to direct me in any way. So I made it part of my life to understand, most importantly for my parents, but if I can get the word out and get people to really understand what's available to them, I think it would make a difference. So I spent the next year and a half working with a company out of Pennsylvania that did VA benefits. And it was great. I helped a lot of families, but I also realized after that year and a half, that I was messing things up for them to get the Medicaid benefit. I really knew nothing about Medicaid at the time because I was dealing with a company out of the state of Florida, and the rules for Medicaid are different in every state. They really never talked about it. We just were helping the veterans get their VA benefits, and everything was good. Well, I realized that there had to be more to this, and I started digging a little bit more and started understanding more about Medicaid. I became affiliated with another financial advisor, and for about 2.5 years, we were helping families with the VA benefits, helping them with the Medicaid benefits, and helping even our younger clients get long-term care insurance. And that went well. But then I knew that there was still a bigger picture than that. It was really more about understanding the family. It wasn't just about selling them a product or just getting in there, getting a check for them and moving on. And I then teamed up with an attorney. And we opened up a law office. I can't be a partner in a law office. I was an employee. She was the attorney. But we opened it up and we realized that the need was growing even more and more. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. As time went on, my dad started showing even more signs of dementia, and my mom was, again, hiding it as much as she could. But because I was going to workshops, I was going to seminars, and a lot of the network I have been doing are with senior other advisors, I knew what to look for. And, you know, we would go out to dinner, and my dad, everybody would get a menu. My dad would look at the menu and he would look at it, and I would say, Dad, what are you going to have? And he would hesitate, and he would look at my mom and say, whatever she's having. And I said, Dad, that's not what you want. I know that you want A, B, or C, but you know, you don't want what Mom wants. No, I'm going to have whatever she's having. I realized at that point that he really couldn't read the menu anymore, that he was just going through with the flow of the conversation. He really, played it off that he couldn't hear, or he said yes or no without even hearing the question. And it was getting worse at home for my mom. We realized that my mom was having a tough time at night. My dad started sundowning, which means that he was staying up all night and sleeping all day. He was starting to hallucinate. He was thinking that there were other people that lived in the house with them. He started asking my mom, who are you? Why are you here? Get out of my house. And my mom would cry to me every night and call me up and say, we have to do something. And I said, well, let's bring in an aide. And that's kind of where a lot of families want to start. That's where I thought a good place to start was bringing in somebody that can just oversee what's going on and actually communicate with me to tell me the truth, because there was a lot of stuff going on there that I know my mom wasn't telling me. My mom didn't want anybody in the house. She never had anybody in the house. We never had help growing up in the house. She was independent and she wanted to deal with it. But on the other side, as being a caregiver for my dad, it was taking a toll on her. I knew that. And I became really a caregiver of a caregiver, because I was kind of there consoling my mom, trying to tell her what to do and not to do, or how to really handle it and explain what's really going on in my dad's mind. But she really, not that she wouldn't believe me, she just, again, was just kind of pushing it away and pushing it away. Well, one day I decided it was time to bring in a therapist. I knew my mom wouldn't be good at some of the group therapy that I was doing, support groups. I was working with the Alzheimer's community care up in West Palm Beach, and I was helping them with support groups. I was going in and talking to the groups to just try and explain to them that there are benefits. You don't have to blow through all your money. There's things that we can do financially. The support group was there for them, and I wanted to bring my mom, and she said no. So I said maybe one-on-one would be better. So I brought my mom to a therapist, and we were doing one-on-one for this one day. The drive there, she was complaining about my dad, how she couldn't handle it anymore. We get to the therapist, who I knew, and my mom just completely shut down. She said, everything is fine at home. I don't know why Paul brought me here. He's making up stories. My husband's fine. I know what my husband needs. I know what my husband wants. And I said, okay, that's completely false. You're making this story up. You're protecting Dad, and there's no reason to. Here's somebody that could help us for you to understand more than your son or daughter trying to explain to you what's really going on. But she wasn't accepting that. So on our drive home, I said to my mom, something bad's going to happen. All right, if you're going to let this play out, something bad, meaning possible death, I don't know. But something bad is going to happen for you to wake up and understand that I could help you. I can get help in the house. I can really make things a lot easier on you. But if you don't want it, then so be it. And I dropped her off, and I went home and spoke to my wife, Susan, and I said, now we just have to wait. Unfortunately, my experience, my clients that I've had, something always happens. Well, it happened. May of 2018, my mom slipped and fell in the shower that morning, got back into bed, and she fell asleep, and my dad went out of the house. They wouldn't let me change the locks to put them higher so my dad wouldn't understand how to open up the door. They wouldn't let me get a GPS monitor for him to wear as a bracelet. But my mom always told my dad it's okay for him to go to the mailbox and come back. And the mailbox was maybe about 50 feet from the driveway, from the front door to the driveway. And when he went out that day, he didn't come back. Well, my mom woke up a couple hours later, called for him, didn't hear anything, and then called me and said, I don't know where Dad is. And again, I'm about a half hour, 40 minutes away at the time. And I said, well, call the front gate, call security. They know who he is just because my dad was on the security patrol team, and let them look for him. Well, by the time I got up there, which was almost an hour later, they couldn't find him. So can you imagine the panic that was setting in? It wasn't a time for me to tell my mom, I told you so, but that was the first thing in my mind. Now we had to find him. And that day was it was about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when she called me. By the time I got up there, it was about 3 o'clock. We then called Palm Beach Sheriff. They came out. I got to say, they were awesome. They came out with helicopters. They came out with dogs. They came out with drones. I couldn't tell you how many people came out to look for him. And he left his wallet in the house. So we know that he had no ID on him. He didn't have a phone at the time because he didn't know how to dial a phone at that point. And we just had to hope for the best. And we went through the rest of the day into the evening, and they couldn't find him. They even did a silver alert, which is typically used for people in a car, but they posted that. I believe he was on the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock news even. Nothing. So at midnight came, and we had no idea where he was. The police said we have to stop at midnight, and we'll come back in the morning. So just imagine how that night went. No sleep, trying to console my mom. Us trying to figure out who else we can call in the neighborhood that might have seen him, might just by a glance just saw him walking by. But we got nowhere. 9 o'clock, the police came back. This time, something that I've been taught with Alzheimer's patients is they go towards water, whether it's a lake, whether it's a pool, there was a big lake behind their house. So they actually bought boats that day, and they started looking in the lakes for him. They also brought their drones, and about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, one of the police officers came running over to the house. We think we found him. And they did find him. They found him about 1,000 to 1,500 square feet behind a building on part of the golf course that was closed. He was laying on the side of a canal. His pants were off. He was wet, shivering, and we have no idea how long he was there. He couldn't tell us. They brought him to the ambulance, and they started asking him questions, and they said, talk to him. He didn't say talk to my son. They didn't say talk to Paul. He said talk to him. He belongs to me. So I had no idea what to do at that point. They took him to the hospital, but I also knew that was kind of the beginning of the end, because in some ways I just knew that the next year, 2 or 3 were just going to be on me, giving that support to my mom, and their life was going to be turned upside down. And it was. I knew that I couldn't continue working. I couldn't continue my life having my mom living in her house by herself, because again, she still wouldn't let anybody in the house. My dad was now in the hospital. They brought him to rehab, and because they knew now he had full-blown dementia, that we had to put him in a memory care community. And it just, everything that I've spoken to other families about, everything that I've talked to parents, to the adult children, grandparents, everything I've said to everybody over the last 4, 5, 6 years now is on my lap, dealing with my own family. And I had to really make decisions that I didn't really think I would have to make, but I did. And one of the decisions was that my mom was going to live alone, that I had to sell the house. Now I had to sell everything, get rid of everything in the house, sell things in the house, fix up the house to get it ready for sale, then move my mom and dad into a community. At least they can be together, but they couldn't be living in the same room because my dad really needed a secure area, and my mom was on the verge of independent/assisted living, so they were in 2 separate rooms in a community. Well, I shop for communities like everybody else shops for communities, and I knew a lot of people. I know a lot of people in the business, and I picked a new community, and I knew people that were involved there, and started off not good from day one, literally. That first night, they called me and said, you know, we can't handle your dad. Now, this is a memory care community that's supposed to be professionals licensed in memory care, and they said, we don't know what to do. And I said, well, can you call upstairs and have my mom come down? And they actually said to me, your mom is here too? She's living here? And I didn't know what to say. So they got my mom, they went upstairs, and they settled my dad down. But over the next month, and I was probably there every day, trying to figure out really what to do, what's the next step. They over-medicated my dad, so the next thing you know, he's in the hospital. Well, once he's in the hospital, they wouldn't take him back into memory care. They just said they couldn't handle him. So now I had to move my dad, and at the same time, I had to move my mom. So now we went to the second community, and I had to then research and do that. So now I have him in the second community, and my mom said, well, we need an aide for my dad. So the costs just started keep going higher and higher and higher, to the point where we were spending $22,000 a month between my mom, my dad, and an aide. And at the time, I did not have Medicaid. I didn't go for the VA benefits. And my mom's long-term care policy, I didn't want to turn on because my mom only had a 4-year policy. And that's going to be in one of my next shows, is to explain why it's so important not to minimize how many years, and don't be on the cheap side about how long your long-term care policy is. Because as of this month, we're sitting in September, my mom's long-term care policy ran out. So she had it for 4 years. It was about $180,000 worth of care dollars that was being provided that ended today. So getting back to my dad, we moved him to a new place. Things were okay. The community was a lot nicer, a lot better, higher end community. And my dad ended up passing away in the nursing home there. I was able to turn on Medicaid for him. And the bill actually went from $22,000 and change down to less than $1,000 between getting Medicaid, protecting their assets, getting my mom's long-term care policy turned on, and getting rid of the aide at the time, because my dad now is in a nursing home portion of the community. So it was quite a ride for about a year, year and a half. That's how long my dad lived. But then my mom then continued. I didn't think my mom would live on after that. Heartbroken, married 60-something years, but COVID hit, and I think, like a lot of seniors that I've met, it took a lot out of them. The interaction, me going up and seeing her, just kind of just knocked her down, and her health started deteriorating. She started showing signs of more dementia. She started showing signs early on, but it was continuing. And then I had to move her. I wanted to move her closer to me, so there was another move I had to make with her. And then finally, She's in the place she is in now for, it's going to be coming on 2 years. My mom will be 94 in October. So I've lived this, a lot of people's situations that are out there, and I feel for the families. I really do. When somebody calls me and I meet with the family, it's coming from my heart, because I know that you're almost clueless with all the information. You almost have too much information from too many sources, from friends and family that just don't understand the system of VA and Medicaid, and also how to protect the assets, how to speak to the assisted livings. Everything's negotiable in life. You don't really have to just sign your life away. Making sure you have the proper documentation before mom and dad get full-blown dementia, making sure you have the power of attorney, healthcare directive, living will. It's so important to update those documents. I did. As soon as I saw the first signs of my dad, I said, this is the first thing we're doing. We're going to see an attorney. And we got those done. And I can tell you now, without those, I wouldn't be able to file for Medicaid for my mom, because she couldn't sign her name if she even wanted to. So it's been an interesting ride. People can reach out to me at my cell phone at 954-540-6609. The studio phone number is 888-994-4995, and we're in Studio A. Tonight the show's almost over, but you can reach out tonight or any Tuesday night at 7:30 with questions. Come in live to the studio. We're here. Love to have you here. I'll keep everything pretty general on the show, but I offer free consultations to anybody, half hour, 45 minutes on the phone. If you want to go further with that, I will come out and meet the families. I do Zoom with families that are out of town. I have a lot of clients, the sons and daughters live out of town and they work, and we speak during their lunch or even over the weekends. I work on the weekends too, because I'm juggling, again, my real estate, my insurance, and my Medicaid planning. I'm trying to make it easy for the family. So, are there any questions this evening? We could take a quick commercial break. We'll be back on the other side. Thank you.
Planning for the future should not be painful and needs to be discussed. From health, family, finances, allow qualified professionals to aid in your planning. LUHU Advisors have been serving South Florida for over 30 years. A licensed real estate broker, insurance agent, assisted living administrator, and certified senior advisor, Paul Solomon is the most qualified and well-rounded advisor for any task. Specializing in real estate, long-term care, life insurance and annuities, Social Security, government benefits, and senior housing. LUHU Advisors. Let us help you.
You've been listening to the LUHU Advisor Show. Do you have a goal for senior long-term planning? Let us help you at LUHU. Call into the show at 888-994-4995, Studio A. Now back to the show.
We have a couple minutes left, so we're going to answer a couple questions that came through.
How can you help? Where do we start? Because your story was so compelling. And unfortunately, it can't just be your story, right? How many other families? So where do we start? Call you?
Call me. Ask the question, where do I start? And it's usually just trying to get your parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, just to try and understand financially where they stand, legal documents where they stand, real estate, who owns the real estate, and really what kind of help they might need. There's geriatric care managers for people that are long distance that are not here. There's geriatric care managers that could come in and can be your eyes and ears and actually, come visit them and say, you know what, I think this is what they need. I think this is the kind of care they might need, whether they could stay at home or have to move out of their home just to be more protected.
Paul, a lot of people, after hearing what you went through, a lot of people have similar situations and they get overwhelmed and they do the worst thing, which is they do nothing. So you're talking to people live on the air today. I want you to explain what doing nothing looks like. Can it get worse? I mean, that was some story, but can it get worse?
Yeah, it can get worse. What happens is, let's say we run out of money. Let's say my mom runs out of money that she has. Then what do? So then, depending upon who's in charge, who might take over, is guardianship there because no one's in charge, nobody has power of attorney to make decisions for your mom. And then if you need to have the care at home or send them to, say, an assisted living, how are you going to pay for that? Then all of a sudden, brothers and sisters have to come out of pocket. And I've seen those horror stories where A, they don't have it, B, they're trying to save money for their own kids, they're trying to save their own money for retirement. And it's really, I'm going to say it, it's really not the responsibility of the adult children to pay for the parents' care when they didn't plan correctly. And maybe they did plan correctly, but now they're living to 90, 95, 100 years old, and they're running out of money. So I would say, start with a conversation with me, and I'll say, listen, this is where you need to start. Let's start here and just take it step by step.
How do you get the parents' confidence? You're coming into a situation, it's not a good situation, and I'm just pointing out the bad scenarios. So
Right.
The good scenarios are easy, but how do you get the confidence of people who are just in a bad situation and they're, like my father and mother, they were dead set to get anybody to help them?
Well, I think the biggest deal is that people that, I have an attorney that I need to use to do my legal documents, but parents are scared sometimes of professionals. I'm coming in as a non-threatening way, having a conversation with them, explaining them even my story, how my mom's 94, and I can help. Please listen to me. I know you don't want to listen to your kids, but we need to do something. If you do nothing and leave it till the end, it's not going to work. You're going to run out of money. Things are not going to work out. Planning is something that's needed by everybody. So plan as early as possible. So you can reach me anytime. It's my cell phone. I'm not going to pick up at midnight, but at 954-540-6609 or my website, LUHUadvisors.com. You can email me at paulsolomonpa@gmail.com. So hopefully I enlightened you a little bit tonight. Please join me again next week, 7:30, same time, same station, and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you for watching the LUHU Advisor Show. Tune in each week for more tips and strategies for starting the conversation with your loved ones, from senior housing to financial planning strategies. Contact Paul Solomon at 954-540-6609. We'll see you next time.